a group consensus. My choices have pretty much all my life been my own choices, and maybe that's the sort of mindset you've got to have to be able to realize that just because the general consensus tells you something is a certain way, that isn't in fact, you know, then I think maybe you need to be in a certain mental space to stand back and observe your world. If you're not able to do that, then you're never going to see beyond the trees or over the fence, or whatever analogy best fits you. But to me, the ultimate solution, I think, is going to be found in the mind, in our minds. I appreciate that we are living in this 3D reality, but we experience it internally. It's our brain that decodes the audio and visual signals that it gets from the vibration of airways or the light rays that come in. It's all decoded by our brain, and within our brain, some would argue it's not actually part of the brain, but let's just stay well within the realms of controversy at the moment and say that our mind resides within the brain, or at least within our head, and therefore our experience of everything is internal. It does take place in our mind. When we feel pain, the pain that we associate with the point of injury, because we can see it and we can kind of feel it, well, that's just electrical signals, ultimately controlled by the brain or parts of the brain, the subconscious parts specifically. But, a very interesting area that I will get into on another show soon, where the mind can help us in dealing with the likes of pain. But for the time being, just dealing with the nature of the mind. And I mentioned Socrates earlier, or Socrates, as Bill and Ted called him. The only true wisdom is in knowing that you know nothing, is one of the things that Socrates tells us. And just to make sure we get what he means, he also said, to know is to know that you know nothing. That is the meaning of true knowledge. Well, when you first hear that, it's it kind of hits you with a counter meaning, but if you dwell on that for a bit, it kind of sinks in, and it kind of keeps you humble as well, because I've come to the realization that if you hold on too firmly to a belief and become rigid in that belief, you are in danger of being made to look a fool. If not straight away, then perhaps some point in the future. I'm not saying that you shouldn't put a certain amount of faith in certain things, by all means, but don't make anything concrete, and that way, you're a bit more fluid. And fluid motion, I think, is a lot healthier than rigid, solid forms of motion. But in reference to the mind, I'll give you an example of why it's not so good to become fixed in your thoughts and assumptions, and allow them to necessarily create fixed beliefs. During a recent gathering, actually over at Pomman's house, a couple of weeks back, was introduced to some new faces. It was good. It's always good to see people relatively like-minded anyway gathering together, because ultimately it's because we all know that there's something wrong, And I think we're starting to realise now that time's passed for making yourself aware of it, and now really is the time. If you're ever going to do anything, now is the time to start enacting things that you believe in. And certainly what we all believed in there was it's a very good idea for people to gather together, face to face, and listen as well as talk. And as Mr. T will quite happily point out to you, when you listen, you don't necessarily always hear, and that's a very poignant statement to make. When you listen, you don't always hear, but if it's on a subject matter that's resonating with your own, then don't waste all your time pouring out everything that you've built up in your own mind. Take on board some of the other stuff first, see how it sits with what you've built up, and then speak your mind. And in doing that, you're going to gain more knowledge and understanding. If you continually try to give it, and I know it sounds like that's exactly what I'm trying to do, but my point is, well, let me just get on with the story in hand, otherwise the show will be over and I've not covered my half a dozen different topics. Right, in brief, Pondman's house. I'd expected the main topic to be about how we go about surviving the system. And I'd already been in a brief discussion with another small group regarding the topic of monatomic gold. I've got no specific issues with that, at all. It's quite an interesting subject, but having had my hopes built up that everyone would be putting in their own little tidbits on how to best deal with certain situations that the system might throw at you. The monoatomic gold topic was fine, but then a bit later I heard Dave himself state that he believed his makeup, his knowledge was given to him from past lives. And I kind of thought to myself, right, okay, it's time to switch topics, from the esoteric to the more 3D reality and practical subject matter that I'd kind of assumed would be on the tips of everyone's tongues. But he actually caught the shake of my head as I turned away from the group, and he said loudly, as he's capable of doing, I stand by what I say. And as I look back, I could see the other people gathered around listening were throwing in their own inputs and ideas on what it was Dave was actually saying. That in an even louder voice, he says, look, my parents imparted ways and knowledge to me, as did my grandparents, and as did theirs, and so on, going back for hundreds if not thousands of years. I have therefore received my knowledge from lives past, or past lives. Right, now this is a real situation, but I'm just using it as an example of how I'd assumed, and others in the group, that I knew what he meant, or what he was going to say, past lives. And indeed he assumed that he knew what I thought, what I was thinking at the time. Now I actually asked Dave if he deliberately set that one up, and he hand on heart says no he didn't. He was just speaking his mind on a topic that happened to pop in at the time, but it did drive home the point that what I'd done is make an assumption, and at certain times we have to rely on our assumption. I fully understand that, but I think if we analyse that a bit more, maybe it's not actually assumption if we have to rely on it, but the assuming bit, the ASSUME, when you split it up, the old it'll make an ass out of you and me, is a good saying to bear in mind, because it's assumptions just like that can go on to create a belief. And so what I'd like everyone, whether you already know this or not, it's always worthwhile reminding ourselves that we have to beware of assumptions creating beliefs. And maybe this is why a certain group of humanity is able to do what they seem to be doing to another group of humanity. I can't say I know for sure, but I do like to understand things that I'm drawn to. I'm one of these kids, or I was one of these kids, I'm a little bit older now, that dismantled everything he found interesting. And yeah, hands up, I wasn't always able to put it back together again. And I did develop a bit of a reputation for anything goes wrong, keep Stephen away from it. I think a Teasmade was the last thing I took apart, and I did actually put it back together again. It's just that nothing worked on it. But it enhanced my understanding of how a Teasmade worked, and maybe it's that led on to my undertaking a course or two in hypnotherapy, which led on to my curative hypnotherapy, which is another subject I want to share with you as time goes on. I do find that fascinating, and the number of uses it has, it's just phenomenal. And when you think about, you're using your own mind to interact with another person's mind, and using really nothing but the mind, you're able to help bring about a cure. Ultimately it's the mind of the patient that actually does the work, but this is genuine. I'm talking of plenty of documented accounts where this cure, and even from sometimes virtually lifelong ailments, a few sessions in the chair in a state of relaxation. And I think I mentioned this last week. Relaxation, equals hypnosis. Let's not take it any further than that. If I'm treating someone with curative hypnotherapy, I want them to be relaxed. I don't want them to be in any trance. I just want them to be relaxed. And in that relaxation, as I would have explained to them before the session anyway, they are going to be aware, of what's going on around them. And if a noisy vehicle passes by in the street, then sure, they're going to hear it. But in knowing that they are, in knowing that they can, it just allows them to maintain a comfortable state of relaxation, in the realization that they're not doing anything wrong. You can't do anything wrong, other than completely refuse to relax. But once you've relaxed yourself, this is how the TV gets you. Once you've relaxed yourself, what you're actually doing is kind of putting to rest your conscious mind, the analytical part of your mind. It doesn't switch off completely. There's a reason why we have the conscious mind, probably to experience life the way we do, but also we need this filter, this screen, if you like. Otherwise, every piece of information we take in, the subconscious would accept. And once the subconscious has accepted something, it enacts it. It makes it happen.